what I always needed. I needed to shave my asparagus.
This is like the most absurd. And that's wrong.
That's it.
Hey, going forward with this new behind the scenes Patreon thing, are we gonna? How far back are we gonna go? We're gonna go right from the beginning when we walk in here.
Oh yeah.
Well, as soon as you turn it on,
whenever you want. It doesn't really make a difference to me.
Well, do you want to do our pregame meeting too?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. Feel fine.
All right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So we live, boys?
We are live.
So we live. So for all of you listening to what I'm saying right now, we have just begun starting a Patreon thing.
Content?
Patreon content for all of our supporters that you can't get anywhere else unless you sign up with us on patreon.com.
It's not very expensive. It's actually really affordable, and it would really help us out.
Yeah.
Did that sound desperate?
Did you?
A little bit.
What
I don't
tiers
sound
did you
desperate,
set?
but please.
What tiers did you set up?
Honestly, if we're being honest with our audience, maybe we can do that later on today. I didn't pick I didn't pick the percentage level because I didn't know what you guys wanted to agree on yet.
Yep.
Okay.
Usually what people do is 135.
135.
I feel like that's fair.
Well, what is our audience willing to do?
Yeah.
We'll set it up for what we have set up, but we can adjust based on what people's needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just set it up as a basic one, and then we'll go as time goes on. Yeah.
Welcome to the Life Podcast, everyone. My name is Eric, and I'm accompanied by Tyler.
Yo.
Benji.
Hello.
And today, we don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to throw a couple things up in the air, and we're going to figure it out. So,
That's
Benji.
basically this podcast. Eric's like, we have a podcast. That's basically what you just said. Like, that's
we have a podcast.
That's it.
We talk about stuff. We got to stick to, a good blanket of topics. But, we're gonna throw. There was one thing that you guys had talked. Well, Benji had mentioned this morning that I really liked.
Where's Waldo?
No, but yes,
it's for a different project.
Very different project.
When that comes to fruition, that's gonna be the savage Easter egg.
Yeah.
You'll know the OGs when they're like, hey, you mentioned that in a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like
back in
6 months
July.
ago. Yeah. There's a lot of projects in the work, so be ready for a lot of different things. We're working on a lot of different projects and a lot of different interesting things. We have a behind the scenes video of a thing that we recorded Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sunday night. Yep.
Yeah, so we have a behind the scenes video of that.
Oh, I got the name of the Sunday thing too.
Okay, cool.
Because we mentioned it. Probably gonna be called The One Takes.
The One Takes. Fair
Yo.
enough. That's a very interesting name.
Well, think about it.
Well,
When you have the car shakedown, it's just a one take. It's like, okay, well, we have one shot. We do it. We sit down in a room. We talk about this one topic. It's one take, one done.
I like
one and done.
I like the name. I mean, we have to stick to that rule though, because once you just call it the one take, everything has to be one take on it.
Well, it's in the air, and everybody's getting a piece of real podcast dynamic of this is what we talk. This is what we talk about in the off time.
Yeah.
So.
If nothing else, we try a lot of different things. So it's like,
well, dude, I've been throwing these titles at the wall for. How long have I had that idea? And it's like,
been a while.
What do we call this thing? Yep. Anyways,
yeah.
We'll discuss it. I don't know what that was supposed to mean.
That was
like
trying to be crickets. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
That was trying to be crickets.
It sounded like a telephone. I was like, what are you on about, Tyler?
It sounded like ad-libs to a new hip-hop song.
Eric's going to isolate that audio and put it on a new track. Wonderful.
Yes. I was trying to be crickets.
I guess we get the show notes out here. All right.
Well, what was Eric talking about?
Oh, it's simplicity. Was that conversation
yeah.
that we started to talk about?
Yeah, one of my engineering professors a while back once told me complexity is not a sign of intelligence, simplicity is.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about software specifically, and like some people get all elegant, or like not elegant, but like verbose with their software because they're like, oh, I want to look so cool, and I can use all of these really fancy functions and all these fancy methods and stuff like that, and sometimes that just makes it more complicated when you already have a library that's pre-built and you can just do something in one line instead of 50. And a lot of times in our lives, we feel like the complexity of our life makes it better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I'm a really cool person and I get to do all of this stuff and my life's really complex, so I must be living life to my fullest. It's like, that's not necessarily true.
My buddy Scott, he plays guitar, and he goes, and sometimes he starts like messing around. And this dude is so goofy. If you guys watch the cooking show demo, he was on cooking show demo 2 when we went to Haruki, and sometimes he'll go and I'll start playing guitar and he'll be like, look, I can play the same note, and like his hands going all over the place, but it's all the same sound happening. And it's like, check this out guys. It's just do 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 do. And that's really what it is. Or like say we were connecting these headphones to the board. It's like, let me use 30 different connectors and go all the way around the board, when it's like, no, you could have just plugged it straight in.
Yeah, and you got to think about like the greatest innovations today are making things simpler. That's really what it is. It's like something gets invented and it's very complex. It's the first time that's the first time anyone's ever made it. It's very complex, complicated, it looks really cool and stuff. But within like a year, you've already got people trying to make it smaller, faster, simpler, like less buttons to turn the thing on. And that's really what people are looking for. People pay for simplicity. You know, that's just what it is.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, good example is the job I'm doing for the lawyer right now. I've been doing a side job for our lawyer, and he is an extremely intelligent man. He is getting up there in age, but I mean, he's still sharp as a tack. Dude is a practicing lawyer. Goes to the office every single day. I mean, it's not like he's like, oh, we let him come here. It's like he's actually still very, very plugged into the firm.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't understand technology. If I can't press one button and everything work, it's like, I don't want to. I can't spend my brain power trying to press this remote and press this remote and press this remote to get my surround sound going. And then if it doesn't work the way that I know how to do it, I'm not going to be able to troubleshoot because I don't understand these systems. It's like, okay, so really, I mean, this guy is super duper intelligent, but like simplicity is the key for him.
Yeah.
He's really. Go ahead. No, it's all you.
Yeah, I was going to say another example. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of examples of this. But like another example that I know of is like, well, when they first started making cars and their exhaust would come out and the condensation from the water would build up in the muffler, and after a couple of years it would rot through and everything would get rusted and the muffler would be useless. And this would keep happening, and then so they were trying to redesign this whole muffler system forever. Like, oh, we got to come up with a better system so that it doesn't build up water over here. And then there was this genius who took a drilled a small hole at the bottom of the muffler, and the water drained out, and it would continuously drain out. Now every muffler on the planet has a hole on it. This guy still makes money. Well, he's passed away, long gone now, but his family still makes money off of a whole idea that he was able to patent.
I get that put in a whole idea.
But they were trying to redesign this whole muffler, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this, and one guy spent less than nothing, actually, whatever time it took him to drill the hole. Simplicity is key, people. Nobody wants to spend more money if they don't have to.
Absolutely, and it also makes the system a lot easier to maintain. So like I was looking at Luke. Luke has like we know somebody's kid whose name is Luke. Luke has like this little like ball that lights up, and I was looking at the circuit board that's inside of the ball that make it light up, and I was like, how do they get this to work? Because like you hit it, it's like one of those dollar store balls where you hit the ball and it starts to light up.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did they get the motion sensing for all of this to work? Because I was like, okay, like you can do like a gyroscope, and that's really expensive. I've bought gyroscopes for boards, and that's more than this whole ball is worth, you know. And it's like, and I was looking at the board, and it was like, there's like this plate of solder, and then there's like this little spring that's just like holding out, and then you have to move the ball enough that the spring just hits the thing, and it starts the circuit.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, okay. So like I would have spent like 3 months like trying to figure out like a super elegant solution, and some engineer in China was definitely like, oh yeah, just put a spring and then bang, done. Yeah.
Cost it 2 cents.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that's how you have to do stuff, where it's like you can't. Well, there's a cost to complexity, and I think that's what it is.
And another thing is, like, the more complex something is, if you have a system that you want to try to, like, especially for like habit building, if you want to build a habit, simplicity is key. Like, that's why they say, like, leave your running shoes at the front door. Don't make it any more complicated than it needs to be. You just go right for your shoes, put them on, and go jogging. Because if you have to go into the closet or go find it in the back of the thing every morning or whatever it is, the back of the thing.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good job.
But if that complexity makes it much harder for you to want to commit to it. So it's very important. Like simplicity is what our minds are. We like to make things very complex to make ourselves feel important. But the simplicity of things is what makes it go viral. Makes it successful.
When teaching drum lessons, a lot of people get overwhelmed when they start having too many options. When like the basics of drums is the basics of drums is the basics of drums.
Yeah.
If you have just a kick and a snare, you don't even need a hi-hat. But if you said hi-hat, kick, and snare, that is it. And that is the foundation of everything. If you can have bass on 1 and 3 and snare on 2 and 4, that is every rock beat ever written almost. Minus, I mean, obviously there's room for creative inflection and whatnot.
Of course, yeah.
But I mean, 1 and 3, 2 and 4. That's it. When people start, like when I'm teaching people drums, once they start seeing more options on the table, they get all sloppy and they just start like, I have to smack all of these things. It's like, no, there's going to be plenty of songs where you're not going to use any of this stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to use the very bare bones elements, and that's what's going to communicate this song effectively. And it's the same with us in our lives too. Does anybody have anything to talk about that?
Well, because like a lot of people they pack stuff onto their plate just to pack stuff onto their plate. Like it's like, oh go ahead.
Yo, like sorry. Are you a Honda fanboy?
No, go ahead.
All right, so think about it.
I just have
you got that lowered Civic, all the stickers in the world, all the aero, wide body, just throw every AutoZone piece in the catalog on the car. It's like, for what? I'm not hating on a Civic, but if like and you want to modify, go ahead, modify your cars. I mean, if you understand the life that comes behind a modified car, go ahead and modify your car, but do it tastefully. There are some modifications that just don't need to be made, or you don't have to make them all because that doesn't make your car the best.
Just like a deep-seated.
Sorry. That was my therapy session for this morning. Go.
Fair enough. No.
Benji.
Like you see people who it's like, the example that I keep thinking of is like
my wide body
like
kit.
Stay-at-home moms, like certain stay-at-home moms will like go and I'm not saying every stay-at-home mom is like this, but like they go and they're like, oh, gotta go bring little Jimmy to soccer practice and I gotta go do this thing, and then I gotta go to Pilates, and then I gotta go do this thing, and then it's like you fill your life up with stuff just to make yourself feel better. And I'm not saying like that's the reason why they do it, but like we see this all the time, or like people who work a full-time job who then go and do other more complex stuff, and they're just like zeroing out time-wise every single day. They're not even happy about it. They're just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that there's like a danger in doing stuff just to do it.
Well, think about Porsche too. Now take it on the other extreme. It's like you pay more for the simplicity. It's like you don't want door handles. You're gonna pay for that. We're not gonna add options. If anything, we're removing things and simplifying things even more, and that's giving you the most streamlined experience possible.
Yeah, that's really what everyone subconsciously wants. It's they want simplicity. It's like whether you consciously know that or not, whether it's like it's especially when you first start something, you try to make it more complicated than it really is. But once you really break it down, everything gets easier to understand. You have to understand the basics of things before you can get to more advanced levels. But like subconsciously, we all want things that are easier to use. You know, we all want to walk into a room and the lights just turn on. Like eliminate, like that's why these things are just we call it like lazy because it's funny. It's like, oh, we can just ask Siri now for pretty much anything. It's like, oh, well, I could have just typed it in, but it's like, but that's what it is. We're going to a more simpler, like point A to point B as fast as possible with little effort. Like we essentially will eventually be a potato that just has a mouth that talks and everything just happens.
We say that the term for that is quality of life in industry.
Yeah.
The term for making things simpler is quality of life.
Yes. And so you improve that quality of life by taking away steps. And that's the simplicity of things. If people pay for things, they get more simple. They always have and they always will. You know, if you could start a fire or if you could buy like a fire starter, you pay for that simplicity. You cut out a lot of steps, you know? So
Yeah.
And that cost of simplicity is an interesting thing that a lot of people don't understand. There's a cost to complexity and there's a cost to simplicity. And there are times in your life where you take the cost of complexity because it's cheaper, but it's also the easier way to do things, you know? It's easier to be complex than it is to be simple. And that sounds backwards, but it's like if I just take this mess of wire, like if I'm running an electrical circuit and I just take a mess of wires and I put them everywhere, it's a lot easier to do it that way than it is to, okay, I'm going to cable tie all of these wires, you know, there's a difference in the cost associated with that thing. And we'll talk about that when we get back because the ducks are here.
Stay tuned.
We would like to thank Anchor for sponsoring and hosting the Life podcast. So who are Anchor and what do they do? Anchor is the all-in-one platform that gives you everything you need to make and publish your podcast. And best of all, it's all free. Anchor allows you to use their creative tools to record and edit your podcast. No need for any fancy professional equipment. Sounds amazing, right? And we haven't even gotten to the best part. Anchor isn't just a recording and editing platform. They're a publisher too. This means that Anchor takes care of all of the hard stuff, like publishing to Apple and Google Podcasts, so you don't have to. So what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Another thanks to Anchor for hosting, publishing, and sponsoring the Life podcast.
That's how I like it.
Out of context, started recording without anything.
That's how
it's
I
not
like
even
it.
talking about the podcast. We're talking about the video.
Like a teapot. Actually, it looks like the frame rate's like
Probably because it's trying to stream to the phone. You probably disconnect the phone. It'll probably be easier.
Yeah, we gotta try that.
Okay, so this is troubleshooting live on the podcast for all the people who can't see the thing.
Did you try unplugging it and plugging it back in?
Did you try turning it off and on again?
I hope we get those kind of comments.
That's half of my job is turning stuff off. And on. I had to explain to somebody yesterday the difference between a capacitor and a resistor, which I didn't think I was going to have to do in my current job. But
Fair enough. Yeah, you'd figure they'd all understand at least a little bit of that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that. Look, a capacitor.
Yeah. It's a trip at this place. But nonetheless, we're back. We out here.
We're trying to find the simplest way to get this video working. So if anybody has any ideas.
Oh, it's recording now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's recording, but
fair enough.
Even simpler is what I'm going for.
Even simpler.
Yes. It's funny because all right. So I happened to come across a video of, so I don't know if you guys know Joe Budden.
Yes.
But Joe Budden was
Dude, he is so salty about like this new generation of hip hop.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
I wasn't even going to talk about anything about him other than like what he's doing. Which was interesting. Go ahead.
I thought you were trying to say Joe Biden.
Joe,
I was all like Joe Biden.
He's salty about this new generation too. I tell you what.
I was like, what does Joe Biden have to do with it?
I wish you would have been like, you said Joe Biden wrong.
Yeah, I was about to correct you. I was like, Joe Biden.
Asterisk Biden.
So, Joe Budden, hip hop artist. So he was on a very well funded podcast setup show for a while.
Like this one.
Yeah, just well funded.
Shout out Joe. Come on.
Yeah, right. And so he was on the show, but anyways, they didn't want to pay him as much as he wanted, so he left. Long story short, he's doing his own podcast now. So I wasn't sure what to expect. He's like on episode 200 and something. So he's been doing it for a while, very consistent. But it just happened to come up on my timeline on my YouTube scroll, and I just saw it, and it was like no more than what we're doing here. It was just like him sitting on a couch, and it was like a GoPro camera recording him, and somebody sitting on a bar stool to the right of him, and then someone sitting on a chair like you are right here. And it's just the three of them on a camera with like some, okay microphones. And it just blew my mind with someone at that level of budget. Like, he has money, obviously. I'm not saying he's rich, no, but he has money to invest in a little bit better than that. But the simplicity of it was just like, well, we have this room in my house that I don't really use. I can put some posters on the wall, get some microphones, and we'll just go. And that's just like, even as someone at like that much of a level where he's had success to an extent, and he still finds like the easiest way to do it. And I think that's really important to remember is like you don't always have to go for the top, most expensive, most complicated thing to get something done. Sometimes it's best to just go at it with what you got. Keep it simple.
And what was that show note that we had? Not every hit was a banger. It's like that will cripple people from even beginning to go because it's like, oh, this has to be some epic masterpiece or something.
Episode 1 wasn't perfect.
Yeah, it has to be this perfect thing. It's like, okay, well, that just cuts you off at the knees and you didn't accomplish anything.
Someone said to me one time, the difference between being crazy and being eccentric is the amount of money you have in your bank account.
Yeah.
And it's like the idea that like, oh, if some random guy on the street does something crazy, they're just crazy and a lunatic. But if Elon Musk does something crazy, oh, he's eccentric because he has a lot of money. And I think that that's true with the way that we deal with products too, where it's all like, oh, if somebody you know from like in your neighborhood has nothing in their house, they must just be super poor and they don't have anything. But if like somebody super rich has nothing in their house, it's all like, oh, they have a low whatever, like low clutter lifestyle or whatever it is.
I feel personally attacked.
It was yeah, it was definitely a personal attack.
That was directly pointed to me.
Tyler, why don't you spend $2,000 on that couch that I want?
Dude, I want that couch so bad.
I want that couch. I don't know if it would fit in my living room. It's a massive couch. I also don't know if I could justify spending $2,000 on a couch.
Well, it's modular, guys. We can do a lot of different things.
I buy half and you'll buy the other half, and we'll bring it back and forth.
There you go.
That's it. If we can fit it in the Kia.
Yeah. But this idea, like you see such stuff like this where it's like, oh, simplicity is not simplicity is not a real lifestyle or whatever. But like you see this like bell curve of stuff where it's like at the low end, at the super cheap end, it's simplicity because you can only afford one thing.
Yep.
In the middle, it's like this bloated, like everything comes in the package because, oh, you're getting the best bang for your buck.
Yep.
And then back at the top end, it's like this thing is so good that you only get this thing if you buy it. Like, and the way that I, like, if you look at food, where it's like you go to McDonald's, you buy a hamburger, and it's just a hamburger. It's $1, whatever. Like, or
I
whatever.
wish, not anymore.
Like, not on the dollar menu, $1.09, whatever it is. And then you go to, like, the middle restaurants, you go to, like, the Old Country Buffet, and you get everything, but it's, like, all mediocre, and it's, like, it is what it is. Like, you know, that's what you're paying for. But then you go to, the super high-end restaurants, and they have, like, these little different servings, and it's, like, the simplicity of it is the complexity.
It's this like, duck breast fillet on a little pate of some kind of root mousse or something. It's like, oh, I just paid like $500 for half an ounce of food.
Do I at least get to keep the plate? No. Okay.
but that's what it is, and it's like the simplicity of it is what you're paying for. Like it's complex in its flavors, but it's simple in its form.
Well, we took a walk. All right, don't judge us. But we took a walk through Bed Bath & Beyond a handful of weeks ago, and we're walking through and we're looking.
Oh, I was like, what?
Yeah, we were looking at all like the random stuff that they have, like, and they have like specialized products for like it was like an asparagus shaver.
Yeah,
and it was just like you can only use it for that, and they were charging like
shave my asparagus.
This is like the most absurd specific thing I've ever seen, and they just like name it that, and they put it on a package, and like this tool is just for that apparently, and they charge like $15-$20 for it.
And if you're basic, you have to have one.
Absolutely.
And it's just the idea of like the simplistic side of that, where it's like that must have somebody bought it. If it's on that, especially on that shelf specifically,
Bed Bath & Beyond did. Like
Bed Bath & Beyond bought it.
The manufacturers sold that.
So Bed Bath, exactly. You know? Thank you. But that's like the idea of like the simplistic side of life can be very expensive, and but you have to think. I mean, for that was a bad example for what I'm about to say, because that is not going to save you any time.
Now let me backpedal everything that I just
said. A little bit. When you think about simplistic, the idea is the simpler it is, you're saving time, but the more complex it is, you're spending more time. So the complexity is like you're spending more money, but you're spending money in exchange. You're giving more time. You know, so you're still spending resources. Okay, if it's going to cost you 10 minutes to turn the thing on, and it costs you $1 to buy it, well, it just costs you 10 minutes and $1. But if you buy something that's $10, but it turns on in a second, you're paying the $10 out of your pocket, but you only spent a second of your life to turn it on. And this is where you spend your resources. This is why like money can, in a way, can buy you time in the future, so that you can spend less time on the smaller things. But you have to understand like that everything comes at a cost, and simplicity is, and that's what that cost is coming from. I'm not saying that the asparagus shaver, I don't know what it was, I'm making that up, but I'm not saying that's going to save you time, but that's the idea around it.
No, absolutely. We talked about that like really early on in the show, that the only difference between somebody who has money and somebody who doesn't is that the fact that they can buy stuff that saves them time. You know, we talk about the Red camera. It's like, that's a great camera.
Absolutely.
I have absolutely no idea how to use it, but if I spent 20 grand on it, like, it is what it is. Like, it saves you time in certain ways. Like, there are people who will not work with anything less than a Red, because it's like, that's my quality of life. I don't care what the budget of the project is. We're spending this amount of money on this camera.
Yep.
And it's like, because this saves us so much time in post editing because of different codecs and everything like that. But like, there are certain things there. Think of something in your life. There's something in your life that, like, my mom will not buy off-brand ketchup. Such a random little like thing, but it's like,
Sandra, I feel you.
Yeah. But it's like, she's like, no, I'm not gonna save 20 cents and hate the ketchup.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna spend the extra 20 cents and buy the ketchup that I want.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll compromise on everything else except the off-brand ketchup.
Eric's paper towels.
Yeah, I was gonna.
yeah.
I was gonna say like everyone has their thing. It's like, and for me, it's paper towels and toilet paper. I do not cut the budget on paper towels and toilet paper.
Fair enough.
You know, it's just I just never do, and that's one of those things where like everyone has their. Like, or I do like buying deli cheese. I don't like just getting the packaged cheese. I like spending a little extra money on the deli cheese.
Dude, absolutely.
It's
even
a different
if
experience.
it's like Land O'Lakes, but you got Land O'Lakes from the
deli
package versus from the deli, like cut off the block. Different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like stuff like that. Like you spend a little bit more, yes, but do you get? There are some things that there aren't much of a difference, but there is a difference there, and if you know it, then you could spend the money and confidently spend your money, because everyone has their vices. Everyone spends money where they think is important, and some people spend it on ketchup, other people spend it on cheese.
Well, everybody spends money. That's the thing.
That's key. Yeah, everyone's spending money.
My dad always said that everybody spends the exact same amount of money. It's just where you spend it.
Yeah.
It's like, if I have it, no matter what your addiction is, your thing might be cars, your thing might be houses, your thing might be whatever. You're going to, percentage-wise, not dollar amount specifically, but like, if you're going to, everybody spends like, let's say 35% of their income on stuff that they want to do.
Yep.
If that 35% is houses, it's houses. If it's cars, it's cars. If it's watches, it's going to be watches. You can have I know a guy who lives on the first floor of one of his tenements. He loves houses and he loves watches. You show that guy a watch, he buys it. It's like, that's his thing. That's just his vice, you know? And it's like, he drives like this like 1980 something Mercedes. He's like, wears like just normal random clothes and has like 5 Rolexes. It's like, that's his thing. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Excuse me, and that's what everyone has. That 35%, we all spend it, and it's a matter if you're spending it on a liability or if you're spending it on an asset. And that's, like, an asset will build you wealth, and a liability will build your headaches, and that's really what it comes down to. So but everyone's spending that 35%. I think it's a pretty solid number. 35% of your income is pretty good to spend on. Like for me, I spend it on music equipment. I love it, and I always use it, so it makes sense for me to spend it there. Or toilet paper, and
yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think we had a prior episode, and I was talking about it too. It's like some people would have a heart attack over like, you spent $1,500 on a guitar or $3,000 on a guitar. It's like, yeah, and most people who have the same passion is like, that's par. That's fine. I can justify that all day long because that's worth it.
Yep. Exactly, and that's like, you understand the quality of it, so you understand that you're paying the $3,000, but you're getting the quality out of it. And if somebody who doesn't understand that industry or doesn't understand that world will be like $3,000 for a guitar, and they think every guitar is the same.
I can go get one for $200.
Yeah, right now up the street. You know Manny, he's selling guitars.
Yeah. Well, the opposite is also true, and this is turning into like a money makeover show. But like the concept of like, if you're in the industry and you watch somebody buy something in your industry that's way overkill. Like, that hurts sometimes, because you're like, you just spent $3,000. Like, my industry is computers. You just spent like $1,000 on a computer that does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what did you do? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you like? What's going on? And like sometimes we fall into that concept of like, oh, I'm just gonna throw money at this problem and everything will go away.
Oh, you're talking about building computers. It's that streamline. Or buying a car. It's like knowing the features that are most important for you, and not buying the fluff that comes with it, and knowing how to cut that line, so that you only get what you need without any of the extra stuff that you're not going to use.
That comes to understanding. If you don't understand what you're actually buying, that's when you spend too much. If you understand what you're buying, you don't have to necessarily understand how it's put together, but you have to do your diligent research, especially if it's something new. For me, like, I understand music equipment, so I know what the value is for that. Tyler, he knows the value of guitars and cars. And, guitars and cars. But anyways, and Benji knows the value of computers, and it's like, so you won't be tarnished, or you won't be like taken advantage of when it comes to that. But if we were to each flip a little bit, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, I'm in charge of computers and you're in charge of music equipment. Now, all of a sudden, you don't know the value of what you're looking at. I don't know the value of what I'm looking at. And if I don't do the diligent research to actually understand it, I could overspend or buy something that I don't need. And that's just where it is. So you have to take the time to really... is it annoying? Yes. Or either that, or pay somebody to buy it for you.
Well, even so, you have to have somebody in the field that you trust, that has understanding, and actually take their opinion, because they may know more than you.
Exactly. And that's what I was trying to get to. You have to take the opinion of the people around you. If I had to buy a computer, I asked Benji, hey, is this a good deal, or is this a waste of money? Why? Because I trust Benji and I know that he knows what he's talking about.
Right. Or you've been around the block. What would if I were in your shoes, what would you do? And I would actually consider your opinion as valid or as gospel, because it's better than mine, because it's more informed.
And like, to continue with the shadow, like Tyler likes to say, sometimes the easiest way or the best way to do something isn't to buy pre-boxed. When you buy a desktop, you're probably the ducks are here, but we're just gonna finish this thought. Sometimes you almost never buy a pre-built desktop, because you're always gonna get stuff that you don't need. It's like, if
Unless it's an Apple.
Yeah, well, that's a different ecosystem. But like, if you're building a PC, desktop PC, and you need a renderer, like you're rendering videos, that's a very specific type of computer that's very different from, oh, I need a workstation from like Excel spreadsheets. Those are very completely different machines.
Absolutely.
And if two different people who have two different need sets buy the same computer, both of them are going to get things that they don't want. So sometimes you have to tailor the experience to yourself, and not just go with the pre-box build.
I had a friend come over to my house the other day, and Eric saw them. She was asking about buying Jeeps, and she was like, "Oh, like, check out my Jeep. Like, what are the problems here? And I'm gonna buy this Jeep. What am I going to expect if I buy this Jeep?" And I said, "Listen, your best idea is to go buy something bare bones stock that people haven't invested money, because a lot of people put all this aftermarket money into a car and think they're gonna get all that money out of it." I'm like, listen. Buy something you know hasn't been beat on, hasn't been off-roaded hard. Buy that, and then build it to suit what you want eventually. Don't have something that's somebody else's cool and headache out the box. And that's the same thing. It's like, shoot in and cater it to your experience. Don't rely on something that's pre-baked, because that's not always the best recipe all the time.
That's good.
All right, we'll come back.
Stay tuned.
Every little thing, it's gonna be alright.
Wonderful.
Welcome back.
This is the second time we have a clip of us singing
it.
that song.
Yeah, I think it's funny because Benjamin got shy and he stopped singing the minute he saw Eric press the button.
I felt like I wasn't necessary, because Eric was already clapping.
No, you needed the harmony. We were at harmony. That's why I was way up there.
Yeah.
The Patreon subscribers saw it.
Yes, that's all that matters. If you want to hear Benjamin sing harmony, then
if you want to see us on camera singing that song, we've already got another video of that coming.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah, I'm also not in that video either, which is better.
That's gonna be like our default go-to.
Yeah, Tyler had the guitar going too, so it's pretty cool. It was a ukulele or something, right?
Yeah.
The uke.
The uke.
The yoke. Anyways, all right. So getting back in, you kind of were ripping on me for not having a couch this morning.
Yeah,
so
that was my goal.
I feel like the shadow really works. So I bought a house in February, and I decided that I don't want anything in my living room that, like, permanently, that I don't want. Meaning, instead of settling for something less and having stuff in that living room that was less than what I wanted, I would rather have nothing. It'd be easier to maintain. I don't care what people would really think about it. I mean, yeah, do I have to go without like not having like an inside couch? Like, okay, whatever. I mean, adjust your lifestyle accordingly.
Tyler, I'd like to side note this. Tyler has a full outside patio set.
And this is so mint and legit. My outside living room is so much nicer than my inside.
Oh,
Eric
man.
and I built the thing for the fireplace.
Oh yeah.
Built is a very
very subjective term.
loosely utilized term. We assembled.
I stacked some bricks.
glue.
Yeah.
I shoveled some bricks.
Yeah, I shoveled some bricks. That's a throwback.
Yeah. Anyways, so I decided, and I made up in my mind, on a level of simplicity, that I don't want anything in that living room until it's set in stone, until I paint it, until I figure out exactly what I want. I didn't even want to paint my house until I knew, or like put things on the wall until I knew, and I could go through and just make it my own.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely a come up, and it was a financial. I don't want to say hardship, but I really had to change the way I lived and change the way I thought about things to be able to move into the house.
You
It
had
was an adjustment.
different priorities.
Yeah.
But it was a good shadow of using my living room as an example, where say you had a living room just like mine. I mean, this big open living room,
Huge.
It's actually really nice.
Yeah.
People have been trying to give me furniture out of the woodwork, and I'm telling them no. Now, if you accept all this furniture, I could have a living room full of furniture that I don't want. I mean, full, wall to wall, full. And one of the beauties of not having anything in that room, all I have to do is wash the floor and pass a dust mop. Super clean, super simple to maintain. And it really gives me peace of mind. As much as there's a time to come, as long as I have that hope in my sight, it's like, okay, I don't lose sight of that hope. I'll get it. So you have this living room. It's either completely empty. It could be full of a bunch of stuff that you don't want that will take you forever to upkeep. Or, I mean, you were talking about somebody with that simplistic lifestyle. You could have the things that you want, have the bare minimum, and be able to upkeep it at a relatively efficient way because you have just what you need and exactly what you want.
There's a very interesting concept too, where it's all like this simplicity. Tyler said like, okay, I don't want anything unless I get what I want. You know, the specific things that I want. And somebody could be like, oh, Home Depot does financing, guy. Just go and buy the stuff you want.
I want everything.
Yeah, it's like, and that's also a level of complexity where it's all like, I'm gonna offset my current discomfort or like the ideas that, oh, like if Tyler was the type of person who was like, oh, people come to my house all the time, they're gonna think I'm weird if I don't have a living room set. Let me go down to the furniture store and buy a bunch of furniture and finance it all. It's like you're adding complexity to your life. You're putting a strain on your own life based off of what other people are thinking of you.
Absolutely, and that's huge, and that was a big thing too. I mean, I have people over my house all the time.
Yeah.
And if I was worried about that, I would be cooked right now. I would have been buried, and I'd probably not be able to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And how many people do that? There's so many people who do that, who are zeroing out because they want to make other people's lives simpler.
Yeah.
It's like you're making your life more complicated. You're making it harder for yourself.
Hey, think about it. So when I moved in, in my kitchen, I had 4 pairs of chopsticks, 4 plates.
That was great. I remember that day.
Like four mugs from the morning show. And like that was it. A knife, one pan, no forks, no spoons. And it was like, this is all I need. And I had that for like probably like 2 months. And it was like I made perfect meals all the time because I had the exact basics. And being in like from a survival background and learning all those things, when you can simplify your kit, like every time I go out and survive, they have this thing. It's like you always overpack because even if you think like I'm slimming out my pack this time, I'm gonna have as minimal items as I can. I'm telling you that you always go back and you're like, oh, I could really not use this, or I could go upgrade and get something that's lighter that can do more things at once.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of like, if we can't do the basics well, then we'll compensate by trying to fill those rooms with all the unnecessary stuff that we don't need.
Absolutely. And it's important like that what you need is huge. There's a difference between what you need, what you want, and what other people want. And like what you guys were talking, I thought it was perfect because if we go back and it was just like a perfect interaction between the two of you because Benji wants that same couch that Tyler wants. But the way that Benji worded it was like, Tyler, why don't you go buy that couch that I want? And it was perfect to this conversation right now, because you have to, it's like, are you buying things for yourself? What do you need versus what do you want versus what do other people want? If someone else wants your living room to be filled with furniture, but you don't need that, and you going out and buying that not only wastes your resources, but it takes more out of you to maintain it. Now you have to clean around it. You have to clean it. You have to do all this extra time to take care of it, or else, and if you never wanted it to begin with, now you're spending time on something that you never really wanted, and it's going to continue.
Let's use the shadow of we'll put Ray on blast, but Ray got a couch. She rents my upstairs apartment, and it's this nice white couch. And we didn't know if it was going to fit up the stairs.
Yeah, we were just...
So it was like, you know what? If this thing doesn't go up the stairs, I'm inheriting a couch that A, I don't want. B, it's white. So, like, between me and the dog and everything, like, don't give me something white, because this thing is destined for a short time. Yeah. Like, it's going to get burnt in the backyard. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, okay, so you get something you don't want. You're not... It doesn't suit you, so that it won't last. It won't be feasible to maintain,
and you don't care about it as much,
right? And it doesn't really mean a whole lot to you. It's be like, okay, like my dog gets up on it and he's all muddy. It's like, I guess I throw this out tomorrow. Like,
and there are more.
But that was somebody's hard-earned money, and somebody would be insulted by that and be like, "I'm sorry, it just doesn't hold the same value in my heart."
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a lot more extreme examples of this same concept, where it's like you're making your life worse by doing this thing. Mm-hmm. You're adding complexity to your life. One example is like, we had a dog when my parents moved out. And I kept the dog for about a year.
Rip, buddy.
And then I had to give the dog away, because it's not fair. Give the dog back to its owner, because it's not fair.
Thank you for specifying.
Yeah. I just handed the dog to someone. No, but it's like, it was unfair for both me and the dog, because at that time I was in classes early in the morning, and I worked till 10 o'clock at night.
It wasn't gonna be
And it's like, I don't have time to care for this dog, and it's like. I would get home, I'd be frustrated, the dog would be frustrated, and it's like, it's not fair for the dog, it's not fair for me, and now I'm always thinking about this animal. It's like, I can't have that complexity in my life, because it's just making my life worse. And it's like...
Honestly, if I would have had my house by that time, I would have been like, listen, I'm going to take him, I'm going to go get his issues fixed, and then you're going to give him to me. Just so you can still hang out with them. I feel bad that you gave him away.
I'm not the type of person to create emotional bonds with animals. I'm sorry. Like, I know Tyler really loves his dog.
I love my dog, but my dog goes everywhere with me too. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Yeah. Like so I have the time in with him where it's like, if you didn't have an emotional bond with the animal that follows you everywhere, listens to your every command. I mean, that dog is the most loyal dog possible. Like, he listens the minute I say something. Like, come here is come here.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you not make an emotional bond with something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's different. But, like, the concept is, like, my life would be a lot worse if I still had the dog. And the dog's life would be worse. So it's not fair. So what do you do in that situation? You get rid of the thing that's making your life worse.
That's really good.
Yeah, and that's actually a perfect example, because a lot of people end up getting animals and stuff before they actually, before they're actually settled, or before they're actually stable, I guess is the word. So, like, adding more individuals, because a dog or a cat, it's an individual that you have to,
a person, a kid,
or a person, a kid.
Yeah.
Like, all these things complicate your life, and then when you have to move out, you have to spend more money to get the things that you need in order to, like, because you have to pay more money in an apartment in order to have a dog. Period. Yeah. Or you have to pay more money in an apartment for more bedrooms because you have more people. Whatever it is, the more complex the things get, it can get expensive when it comes to, like, growing. You can't grow in complexity. You have to be as simple as possible, as single as possible, I guess is the term, but not like
singular
as possible to grow at the most efficient rate.
That's it. And you were talking, and Eric said it on a show at one time, and he said everything has a maintenance cost. And I grabbed that and I said, yeah, as simple as that statement was, that's the most profound thing. And those are the things that, like, they flip my mind, is just the one little phrase or sentence or whatever it is that sparks that revelation that you're able to, like, oh my god, I see it, I get it. Everything has a maintenance cost. If you go and buy a high maintenance car, that was the example. It's like, okay, I can go and I can purchase this and I'm at my limits, but we didn't count the cost that now it's going to complicate your life, where you need storage for it. You need to be able to take care of it, maintain it, or else you're losing out on your investment, and your life gets worse, the car's life gets worse, and everything's worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a trade-off there, and our whole life is deciding what sacrifices we're going to make and what ones we're not going to. You know, when you think of like a relationship with another person, is very expensive. It's very time consuming, and it's a lot of stress on a person's body.
That's the very mental cost, is really having to carry somebody else, like mentally, physically, emotionally, things like that. That's a bigger cost than like, honey, I bought you flowers every day. Like
exactly, and that's like, those are costs, and that's complexity, and the trade-off is whatever you're receiving from that person, either emotionally or whatever, you know, it's like that's your trade-off. And it's like the same thing with a Ferrari. Like, you know, this sounds like so superficial, but it's like, if I go buy a Ferrari, there's a guy up here in Dartmouth who has a Ferrari it's always covered. Like the guy never drives the car. And it's like, you buy a Ferrari, you have an upfront initial cost, and then you're like, oh, or the Bugatti, like, I know I'm switching cars, but like a Bugatti, you have to change the tires if you drive the car or not. After a certain amount of time, like I think it's like 3 years or a year, every year you have to change the tires. Yeah. And every 4 times you change the tires, you have to change the rims. And it's like $100,000 to change the tires on the car.
But I have a Bugatti, guy.
Yeah, and it's like, and like that's the biggest thing. It's like, if you drive this car or not, you have $100,000 bill a year minimum, not including oil changes. And it's like, there's a cost associated with having that thing. What's the benefit? I get to say I have a Bugatti. I get to say I drive a Ferrari. It's like, is that cost worth it for you?
Or the enjoyment you get from the car. I mean, you can say it, and that's like, okay, well, I'm just keeping up with the Joneses. But is that driving experience worth the $100,000?
Absolutely. And then even to bring it down to something more obtainable right now, like in today's day and age, Tyler doesn't have a couch. Because Tyler doesn't want the complexity that a couch adds, or it doesn't want the complexity that the bill is going to add.
That's it.
So for Tyler, the benefits don't outweigh the costs.
Absolutely.
I took an ethics class one time, and she was talking about this concept of like, does the end justify the means?
I love that saying.
It's like, it's not necessarily true all the time. Like, it's like, you got this thing, but what was the cost of that item? When we talk cost, we're not talking about dollars. We're talking about mental, physical, emotional stresses, things like that. Is it worth it?
Yeah. That's absolutely, like, yeah, that's perfect. And even when you think about, like, you know, putting things on a credit card, you know, somebody told me once, actually, it's a good friend of mine, he said it, and then I was like, it kind of stuck with me. He was like, because we were going to go buy something. He was like, oh, I could put it on my credit card, but I don't want to pay for it twice. And I was just like, I looked at him and I was like, you know, you have a point there. And it's like, because you put it on the charger initially, right? And that's just like your first purchase. But then you have to pay for it again when you pay the card. And is it worth it? Like, to you, like, that purchase on that credit card, is it worth it to you to actually pay for it twice in your mind, like, to actually give money twice for this thing? And if it is, then okay. But you have to, like, thinking about it that way, it comes down to, like, what is the cost for you? Like, if you just put anything on a credit card, and anything, you know, you do have your small purchases to keep the card going. But, like, I'm talking big purchases, and I'll just put it on my card. Is it worth paying for it twice?
Well, you pay for it twice in interest.
Oh, absolutely. The interest, absolutely.
That's it. I mean,
sometimes twice over.
My parents, we have 50 seconds before we go, but like, my parents and I used to talk about like cars all the time and be like, people, like, somebody spent like 40 grand on a Kia, like 60 grand on a Kia, and it's like, what are you
Kia
doing?
Stinger GT, bro.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Like, I own a Kia, so no hate to Kia, but like, nobody's gonna pay 60 grand,
cute.
or like nobody.
That's cute.
Yeah, that's cute. like Kia, you're not worth 60 grand, but it's like by the time that you pay off that car is long gone.
Oh, absolutely. It's worth 3.
Yeah, it's like you don't have a car anymore. You're still paying for the car, and you're now resenting the car that you bought.
Absolutely.
It's like, what's the point?
Plus that price point, I know we have 12 seconds.
Yeah.
But that price point, if you're spending 60 grand, people want the brand associated with it too. So people look at it and be like, yo, you got a ballin' car. Not like, is that a Kia?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that a Kia? And that's huge. Like, if you're gonna spend like that amount of money, get something that you actually that you're gonna like.
All right, so wrapping the show up in one sentence. Does the ends justify the means?
So do the means justify the ends?
Oh, I got one.
Yo,
Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Oh,
there it is.
I was thinking like, no. Anyways, we will see you later.
Thank you for listening to the Life Podcast Show. We really appreciate all your support. We meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning just to talk and share our perspectives on everyday life situations. If you haven't already, please share this with your friends and give them a chance to join the conversation. Also, if you liked what you heard today, rate our podcast. The higher the rating, the longer we can keep this going. And a special thanks to our future sponsors that will soon partner with us on this journey. If anyone would like to contact us, please email us at thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. One word. That's thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. Be blessed and have a wonderful day. Full day.